Hello! Today we're answering one important question that I get asked about every week. Does your coach need to be good at whatever game you're playing? In this video, I'm gonna take Rocket League for example, because I'm a Rocket League coach. I'm also a League of Legends coach and probably eventually a TFT coach, because that's what I've been heavily invested to in the recent days. And I often get asked, what's my rank? The number one question every single player asks me before anything else when I tell them I'm a coach, they ask me what rank I am. Fortunately, in Rocket League, I held a pretty decent rank as long as my wrist didn't give up. Was I good enough to be a pro? Hell no. But I was okay-ish, you know, I was in the top 0.1% at a certain time, which is usually good enough to coach the vast majority of players, right? So in most cases, my rank wasn't a factor, but they always ask, were you SSL? If it's in League of Legends, they ask me, are you Diamond? Are you Masters? Are you Challenger? Whatever game this applies, people ask you, what is your rank? Why? It's not relevant. Honestly, it just isn't. There's a lot of things that are relevant about being a good coach, and unfortunately, ranking is like not one of them. How does me being good mechanically with my hands allow me to be a better coach? Now we need to delve a bit deeper, because it's a bit more nuanced than that, right? The short answer to the question, does your coach need to be high ranked to be a proper coach? The short answer is obviously no, but the long answer is actually a little bit more nuanced. So let's look at a question that I asked you guys on Twitter. Curious where you guys stand on this. Do you think an esports coach should be playing at a competitive level to be a good coach? Being Masters in LoL, SSL in Rocket League, Global Elite, in Counter-Strike, etc., you get a point. The vast majority said no, not necessary. Or not necessarily. English is hard. But you know, this is a number that makes me happy. You know, at least the majority knows that it's basically irrelevant, right? The 30% that's there is what kind of bothers me, because 28% is still it's still a big chunk of players, you know. It's only 71 vote, but let's extrapolate, that's still a shit ton of people that think good coaches need to be good players in whatever the game they are. Do they need to understand the game? Yes. Do they need to be able to play at that level? No. So let me dive a bit deeper. I've been a coach of Rocket League now for a year, a bit more, because I've helped actually like other coaches. I give formations. Is that an English word? It is now. We're making up words. I basically give classes to other coaches, like how to teach Rocket League. I've been a League of Legends coach for now almost a year also, and I think I did like a successful job, honestly. Am I the best coach there is? Hell no, I don't think so. I think that would be very presumptuous, especially since it hasn't even been a year, and I've been with much better coaches than me, and I'm always striving to learn more about being a better coach. So let's dive into what is a good coach, right? We're gonna open up a little Word doc, and I'm gonna list the thing. Actually, you know what? I'm an accountant. We're going on Excel, guys. Excel. It just, you know, I feel at home here, right? I feel at home. So I'm just gonna zoom here, and we'll do one list of the skills that is needed to be a good coach, right? So we'll have a coach list, and we'll have a players list. Oh, let me zoom that even more. Ooh. Let's zoom in. All right, and we have players, right? And we're just gonna do here skills, and we will rank them out of 10. Okay, so mechanics in a game, that means, are you able to flip reset in Rocket League? Are you able to double tap in Counter-Strike? How good are your nades? How good are your quick flicks? How good's your tracking? In League of Legends, it's how good your CS is. Can you land your skill shots? Can you dodge skill shots? In TFT, it's, can you actually sell your units fast enough and roll fast enough? I'm kidding, but you get the point. Mechanics, coaches, 0 out of 10. Absolutely irrelevant. Do they need to understand them? Yes, but I'm talking about being able to pull them off. Usually, players at a high level, this needs to be a 10. Basically, there will always be some players that are like absolutely insane. So let me go to 9, because there will always be like the few players that are at 10. Like for example, Faker in League of Legends was just like so far up mechanically. Insert the insane Faker 1v1Z. So let's take that example as a 10, right? So a pro player, let's be even more specific. Pro player, here we go. They need to be at 10, right? And you'll get the occasional like exceptionally good player that will be a 10. Now, mechanics is what I would call like micro, right? About the macro game, now macro is almost always just knowledge, right? Because there's no hard thing mechanically about rotating on the Summoner's Rift, right? There's nothing mechanically intensive about rotating in Counter-Strike, right? It's all about knowledge, knowing where to position yourself. That is crucial for a coach to understand macro. That's a 10. That's non-negotiable. That is where coaches actually shine and provides the most values to players, especially players that aren't pro yet. Because usually, let's go with aspiring play, right? When I say aspiring, it means he's basically already high rank, but he's not quite pro yet. If you guys actually like want a rank example, let me see. Aspiring player in League of Legends, he'll be like Diamond, right? In Rocket League, he'll be Grand Champion. I don't know the Counter-Strike ranks because I'm just garbo at Counter-Strike, but you get the point. All right, Diamond, GC, I think that's a good. And usually pro players rank is irrelevant, right? You're just a pro. People don't play solo queue, they don't grind. Who cares? You get the point. So aspiring players, usually mechanics are about like a 7 or 8, right? They're pretty good. If you go in like high Grand Champion or even SSL, because sometimes aspiring players are the top rank, but there's other key factors that prevent them from going pro. So let's say they're usually about 7. They're pretty good. From example, like I'm coaching a Rocket League player right now, and he's like much better than I am in mechanics. That is for sure. But there's a lot of habits. There's a lot of little things that are usually outside of the game that they don't do. But mechanics is rarely a problem, right? And it's usually easy to fix. You just need to practice more. Macro for aspiring players, usually it's about a 2. People are garbage at macro, okay? It's not even close. They'll be pretty good at mechanics, but usually the macro understanding is just garbo. I've seen plenty of Diamond players in League of Legends just have basically 0 macro. Like, not bad macro, not they're trying to learn and they're making mistakes. No, 0. They're trash. They're absolutely amazing. They have great CS. They have like good skill shots. They can dodge everything. They're super like mechanically gifted, and that's what carries them to high ranks, because usually that's what matters more. But as soon as you convert from here to here, the biggest problem is now that you're not a solo queue player. You're gonna play with your team, and everyone in the team is gonna be basically pretty good mechanically. And the higher you climb, the higher you get into those specific competitive lobbies where you'll get basically high-level scrims, you very rarely will be able to outscale your opponents through sheer mechanics. It's gonna happen, there's always exception, but I'm making like huge broad strokes for this vid, because players and coaches, there's always like specific stuff, right? You can always go deeper and deeper. And usually the macro of pro players is pretty good. Let's go with an 8, and it's gonna vary like wildly. This is here in the team. I'm talking to the team. This is where it's gonna vary the most, right? This is where you might have 2 players that basically just follow the call of one guy, or 2. Usually you want every single player to know what the best situation is in every single situation, but that is almost like never gonna happen, especially if you're not just like 5 very high level players. I'm talking like specifically like competitive teams that are not quite at the level of like the pros yet. You'll usually have 1 or 2 guy that is all right at that, and the other guys just basically follow along. That's a problem. And how can you shine as an aspiring player to being a pro player is definitely work on this. And how do you do that? You get a coach. Like it's as simple as that. Coaches will spend all the time that the players are spending here in free play, practicing mechanics in the training tool in League of Legends. Every single time they're practicing there, the coaches are actually practicing this. What's the draft going to be in League of Legends? What is what's the rotation we're going to use? What do we want to do? Do we want to forfeit the first dragons and go for the Rift Herald? What is our broad strategy? When we get Baron at 20 minutes, what's the call? Do we go 1-3-1? Do we go 4-1-0? There's a lot of options, and this is where I think the biggest misunderstanding comes from when people ask what rank like are you when I tell them I'm a coach, is because they expect me to be around here for mechanics, right? And there is not a lot of coaches, except like the pro players turn coach, obviously, that will be great at this, because it's no purpose. It gives absolutely like zero value to being a good coach. What I will say though, there's a big caveat about that. Being able to play at a competitive level is definitely an advantage as a coach. Don't get me wrong. Why? Because you can put yourself in the shoes of your player, and that is worth so much. When I coach people in Rocket League, I know exactly the problem they will face because I faced them myself, right? That is huge to make them understand a bunch of things. So it is definitely valuable. Is it required though? No. And I'm sure there's a lot of examples of coaches that have never been high level at a game that are much better coaches than pro players turned pro. Because there's one other skill that is crucial, and it's communication. Ideally, you want communication to be 10 here, 10 here, and 10 here, right? Because it is super crucial. It is absolutely required for a coach to be 10 at communicating. If you're a shitty communicator, you're going to be a shitty coach. That's just like, there's no way around that. Your job is basically talking to your players and trying to help them, critique them without actually flaming them, being constructive, actually like hearing their thoughts, hearing them. It's super, super, super important. Those players, what usually is their communication? Zero. Nothing. Just play ranked in any of these games, and the higher you get, the more toxic people get. People don't talk. There will always be exceptions. But my two, like, people are trash at communicating, all right? It's difficult, and communicating, when I say that, it's like, is the information you're giving, like, is it pertinent? Like, is it actually, like, gonna help anything? Do you actually give the information in a way that is fast and precise, right? Do you overload the conversation? People often make the mistake of, okay, I need to communicate more, so I'm gonna talk all the time. No, that's garbage. You're taking like the whole what we like to call the verbal space. You're basically polluting everyone and just teaching your teammates to actually like white noise you, and that is not good. That is not what you want to do. Usually pro players are much better at that. I absolutely have no clue how good they are, but let's say like ideally they want to be an 8, right? They want to be able to communicate. They'll, again, like macro, this is going to vary like a lot. This is going to vary a lot. You'll have great players that absolutely are amazing in communication, and you will have people that basically don't talk because they don't need to, right? And in League of Legends, let's say talking in some position is just not as important as in other positions, right? Ideally, every player is able to give like not good information and being able to listen, but this is where also you can really improve if you're an aspiring player. And how you're gonna do that, once again, you try to get a coach. All right, like they're gonna teach you how to communicate better. They're gonna teach you what information you should convey to your teammates, and I really feel like these two is the biggest like game changer for coaches. And what players usually like to see is here, and this is, and you're ranked in various games is mostly based on this. Mostly based on this. You can get pretty high ranked in Rocket League with good rotations, but eventually you'll hit a cap, right? If you can't hit double taps, if you can't bang the ball, eventually you'll hit a cap. Same thing with League of Legends. You can have great macro, but if you get stumped in lane every single game, you will lose. That's just facts, right? So the most important thing to climb the ranks is this, but as soon as you get into a 5v5 competitive game, or 3v3 in the case of Rocket League, you really need to focus on that. And I'm specifically talking about team games, obviously, if that wasn't obvious enough. So the most important thing you should ask your coaches is not what rank are you, is your game knowledge good? and you try to see if they're good communicators. This is the most important thing, by far. I don't know if this made any sense, but I think like getting coaches is extremely valuable, and not because of that, right? Because coaches can help you in various ways, but they will never be able to like do the mechanics for you, right? And then being able to pull off certain mechanics and be high ranked, it just won't bring any values to the people that are already able to do it. So basically that was a 15-16 minutes vid to just rant about this topic that I get asked often, and I just hope to break the myth. Basically, break this like 28% that think it's absolutely required. Is it a plus? Yes, I think I've made that pretty obvious, but it's not. It's definitely not required. There's a lot of things that coaches will be able to help you, and probably this is going to be the topic of next week. I'm going to talk about what does a coach bring to players, right? Because when you've never been coached, it's hard to know should you hire one, should you get one, what's gonna happen with that, you know, will they provide value? And oddly enough, almost every player that comes to me to get coach are the better players, almost always, which is kind of interesting, because if you look at who should get coaches, I mean, apart from every single person, because I think even pro players benefit a lot from coaches, it should be basically the lower rank you are, like the biggest value a coach is, because you have so many mistakes to fix, right? But in practice, usually the best players are the ones that tend to ask you the most questions, like by far. That has been my experience. Maybe yours has been different, but in every single team that I've coached, the people that I coach on one-on-one, they're usually pretty good, and if they're in a team, more often than not, they're like close to being the best players. The one that seek out coaching usually understand the value of a coach and understand their flaws, which is usually here. And as long as you don't realize that this is the problem, to actually being good in a competitive level, it's going to be hard to progress, right? So I hope this answers this very simple question with a very long answer. I think you're starting to know me more and more. I keep ranting. I talk a lot. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.